There was a knock at the door. I didn't move, and then they knocked again. I barely had time to shove the note in the drawer. I opened the door, and 2 men were there. They looked like officers and said they had a few questions about Trinity. They said it was routine. One stayed by the door, and the other walked in like he'd been in my apartment before. They asked when I last saw her, if she'd been unstable, if I knew anything about the blood in her apartment. Then one of them mentioned a tip. Someone spotted tossing something off the Midtown Bridge. I said I hadn't heard anything, and they didn't push. They just kind of stared at me. I asked if I should call a lawyer, and they smiled, said it wasn't that kind of visit. Then the one by the door asked, "Did she tell you anything about having a stalker or any sort of blackmailing situation?" "Why do you ask?" I said. And he just shrugged. "Did she?" I looked right at him and just said, "I don't recall." And then they left. But I obviously did remember. The floppy disk was useless in my hands. No one has a drive for these anymore. So I went to her apartment. The place was still sealed, but I broke in through the window. There was dust everywhere. Everything she left behind felt half alive. Books stacked by the window, shoes lined up. Her desk was the only place that looked touched. She always bragged about loving that old desktop. Turns out she was hiding something in it. I plugged it in, fan roared, screen flickered, like it hadn't been woken up in years. I slid the floppy disk inside the drive. The machine groaned, then loaded one thing, a single file, adac.zip. I clicked it, and boom, password required. I swear to God, that pissed me off so bad. Girl, enough with the games. How am I supposed to figure this out now? Trinity. The cursor kept blinking. Password required. I tried the obvious first, her birthday. Then Monte's birthday. Nothing. So I stared at the note she had taped to the disk. It said, "I'm sorry. Let's see what side you choose." And as I kept thinking about it, I started seeing it differently. 8 letters, 2 sentences. Maybe it wasn't an apology. Maybe it was the key. So I converted it line by line, typed it in, enter. The screen froze and then it opened. Inside the zip there were half-corrupted scans, memos stamped ADAC, tables breaking apart, ink smudged, barely legible. The only words I could make out were exposure, subject, and one headline, half-legible, "Governor tied, ... secret scandals, ... And then on the last page of a fully redacted scan, in the margin, there was a scribble they must have missed. It said, "I should have stopped her from getting on that plane." They left her name taped to the mirror. I guess they didn't want to reprint the call sheet. Monte was already dressed. Charcoal suit, fresh cut. He didn't say hi, just motioned for me to sit. I watched him rehearse a smile. The way he adjusted his jaw, changed his posture, like he was building a version of himself from the outside in. He looked fine, but sometimes he would blink kind of heavy. He didn't look tired exactly, but the whites of his eyes looked dry, like he hadn't cried but wanted to. I asked if he wanted me to call it all off, and he said no, that it'd only make things messier. I asked how he was doing, and he just nodded, like he heard me but didn't answer. There were no pictures of her in the room, no flowers. The cameras arrived, he stood up, and I realized this was the version of him they wanted. Dry, cold, professional, great for politics, and I played a part in it. It was the first time either of us had laughed in days. I don't even remember what started it. Some dumb memory. I think Trinity trying to cook rice in a hotel coffee maker. She called it culinary rebellion. Monte said she made him eat it for 3 days. We cracked up, like actually laughed. The kind where your stomach hurts and your face feels all hot. I think he needed it. I know I did. Then Out of nowhere, he asked, "Do you think she'd be proud of me?" I looked at him, and I didn't say yes, but I laid my hand on his right thigh and leaned my head on his shoulder, and we just stayed there in silence. It was quite nice, actually, but maybe I should have just said yes.